Okay, everybody. All right. Listen, we got to talk about something. We got to talk about Godzilla Minus One. This is one of the most impactful cinematic experiences I've ever had in my entire life. I know that sounds like hyperbole, okay? And I have been guilty of saying just about every film that I come out of the theater of like, oh, it was so good, it's so good. But this film has stayed with me ever since I've seen it, and I must see it again. I must buy it on Blu-ray. I must own this film because it is not just a monster movie. It is something so grand, yet so personal, that it is connected with so many people. I've seen multiple videos on YouTube from some of the same creators creating multiple videos about this film. And I'm going to explain to you why without spoiling much, hopefully. I will make a separate video, a spoiler video, but this one is going to be spoiler-free, or very, very mild spoilers. I have seen, oh my goodness, so many Godzilla films, especially growing up as a kid, especially on a sick day where I'd stay home and turn on TNT or TBS or one of those cable stations and they would play the older Godzilla movies. And some of them were a little bit goofy. I remember a Saturday morning where I was watching one of the videos and Godzilla had a kid and the kid could talk to humans. And I was like, what is going on? What is happening? But the most important and the most impactful thing about this film is that it's about life and about living. And it's also about nationalism and something that's so intrinsic in the human condition of working together. And what happens when what you believe in is requiring that you sacrifice your life for. Back in World War II, when it came to Japan, they believed that the emperor was their god. And as somebody who grew up religious but no longer subscribes to any religion, it was fascinating to see the main character. His name in the film is Koichi Shikishima, played by Ryunosuke Kamiki. My apologies if I butchered that, but what an incredible performance. What a performance that you could feel the weight of survivor's guilt. You could feel the fear that he had in certain scenarios. And there is a point in the first act where he made a promise to his family that he would live. And this is really a bigger question that many of us have thought about later on in our 20s and 30s, especially us men, is, oh, wait, I made an oath. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and we have a lot more domestic enemies. I made an oath that I was willing to sacrifice my life in order to serve my God at the time. And so to see him rather fulfill his promise that he made to his family, rather than the promise to his nation or the promise to his emperor God, I found to be so profound, so personal, so real, and something that I immediately rooted for. And also, I was very emotional at that moment, which I'm sure many of you were, and the emotions continued through the wonderful performances. Minami Hamabe, who played Noriko Uishi, trying to survive, trying to do the right thing for the community around them was something very profound. All the characters that are in this film you care about. You have this great montage in the second act where the boat and the boat captain and the scientist and the young kid and the gunner, who is Koichi, because he has experience gunning, are on this ship, and it's in post-World War II, so they're really the only security force that's out there on the ocean clearing mines because the military was stripped away after World War II in Japan. And to see, there's a certain point in the movie, and they've showed some clips when Godzilla's chasing them on the boat, which is incredible. But there was a moment when Koichi is shooting at one of the mines, part of his job, and you can see the tracers arc in a way that a machine gun would behave in real life. And I thought, oh my gosh, this director knows what he's doing. That director is Takashi Yamazaki. Later on in the film, when you see the attack on Godzilla, it echoes back to the first attack in Act 1. And in the first attack, it's a oneer. It's a one-shot. And I got so excited that the director used this action set piece to have this oneer with the camera. And I just looked at every single major blockbuster that's come out with the exception of John Wick 4, who had an amazing one shot at the end of the film. That's what brings the action more to life. Instead of doing these cutaways to cover that the actors don't know how to fight or the stunt people have to do the heavy lifting in these scenes. By the way, we need a stunt category, please. Golden Globes, Oscars, Critics' Choice. We need a stunt category. It has been way too long that those that help bring these action scenes come to life have been ignored in the awards space. So let's make it happen, please, sooner rather than later. Don't we like the Game Awards where they disrespect everybody when it comes to the engineers and the artists that make the product, you know? That's a whole other video. There was another moment in Act 3 that made the characters in Act 1 so much more vital and so important. In this full circle moment that just made my mouth drop and have this deep love and appreciation for the script, because this is magical. And that can happen with the dialogue, that can happen with action, but when you make every character matter that's on the screen, the audience is going to stay invested the entire time. The visual effects are great, especially for the budget that they had. And I noticed at the end credits that Square Enix was involved, so I wonder if the cinematics team was involved from the video game space to work on this film. Now, Square Enix has worked on films before. They even did their own full feature-length film, Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Bomb. But still was cool to see, and I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. The music is staying with me. There's this really, really beautiful orchestration that pumps you up, that makes you so elated to see these people working together in order to fulfill this task of stopping this god monster that is wreaking havoc everywhere. The atomic blast, many people have talked about this, and when you see Godzilla unleash that devastating atomic blast, it horrified me. I think the Ginza Harbor attack was scarier than Hereditary. There's something about these characters that we, the audience, really latched onto that I did not want them to die. I did not want them to get hurt. And when you go into the third act, it reminded me of Joker. The amount of tension that you feel for the main character. It also reminded me of the Two Towers, the amount of tension you feel for the collective whole of every single one of these characters, from the people on the boat to the people in the city to all the volunteers that are willing to do something about this. There's another scene that was very emotional that I would love to go into more in the spoiler video. But it was such a universal theme of people working together for a cause that they believed in, for a cause that is not asking them to sacrifice their lives in order for glory and recognition and power, but in order to defend their loved ones and to protect their homes. And to see these men that feel crushed or have felt crushed because of their defeat in the war and their government has let them down, for them to come together and realize we have to work together in order to make this happen. It's so inspiring. And again, it goes beyond nationalism. It is neighbors. It is a city. It is people. It is a nation. But they're not doing it because the God Emperor says so. They're not doing it for glory. They're doing it for survival. And to see the amount of courage that every single one of these actors brought to the table, no matter what team they were a part of, they were willing to give their lives in order to stop Godzilla. And going into the third act, you are rooting for them so much. There's so much more that I'd love to say, but I'm going to save that for the spoiler video. This is what I would like you to do. I would like you to go see this movie as soon as possible in theaters. I really wish that they would release it on Dolby and IMAX, because I saw it in Dolby theaters and the sound was absolutely breathtaking. It was a sound mix as well that horrified me. There is this tail swipe that Godzilla does in the attack in Act 2. and you could hear the sound mix of the people being hit by that tail and in the buildings, and it freaked me out. There is a moment where there's broadcasters on the roof of one of the buildings, and you see them briefly in one of the trailers. But the amount of passion the broadcaster has, and for the team to show Godzilla, and the gentleman with the microphone is saying, "I can see his eye. I'm looking into the beast's eye." Whew, you could feel that level of horror, but his commitment and their commitment to telling the world what was happening. And to see the eyes of this beast, both in the boat scene when he's chasing the boat, later on in the Ginza attack, and in other times in the movie, there's just something about those eyes that really freak you out. Because this Godzilla, as the director said, he's not just a force of nature, he's almost like this god, not a spiritual god, but a horrible, destructive god. And what can humans do against such power? I'd like to talk a little bit more about the symbolism that I felt in this film. Godzilla representing nuclear power, what nuclear power has done to the Japanese in the past, what it has done to every nation around them and every nation in the world, having to change their outlook to know that humanity is now capable of such a destructive force. And for Godzilla, the first film to come out in the 50s, to be such a wonderful story and representation of this new power. Yet there's something even more profound that I got from this film, is that you see, mild spoilers here, but you see Godzilla in his natural state. He's like a dinosaur, if you will, that didn't go extinct. Comes from the ocean. The locals call him Godzilla. He attacks Odo Island, but you see this proto-Godzilla that would make sense in the natural world in terms of, dinosaurs that maybe lived on. But with the nuclear experimentation and the growth and mutation of Godzilla to such a monstrosity, and to have anger and vindictiveness, to me it represented war. War has always been part of the human experience, right? That proto version of Godzilla kind of represents war as always part of humanity. But now in the nuclear age, what war has become is this completely destructive force that doesn't care about life whatsoever. And the main theme of this film is about life and to live. That's all I'll say, really, folks. I hope I didn't spoil too much, but this film is an absolute wonder to experience. I still get emotional thinking about it. I get emotional watching other people's reviews about the film. So if there's one film that I would wish for you to see before the end of the year, it is definitely Godzilla. And it turns out that they will be releasing Godzilla in more theaters and prolonging its stay in theaters. But I tell you what, as soon as it's available on digital and on disc, I would love to buy one of you lucky folks that watch my channel a copy. I would be honored to. So that is my spoiler-free, or very mild spoiler, review of Godzilla Minus One. I also feel that the director/writer/the person in charge of the VFX, Takashi Yamazaki, was able to create a story that fits so well between all the different departments, between the visual effects crew, between the live action crew, between the script, that is so solid. Everybody in Hollywood needs to take a step back. Every creative person in the space of filmmaking must see this movie and take notes, because this is how you achieve a cinematic masterpiece with a budget of $15 million or less. This is a masterpiece. This is a benchmark in filmmaking, and this is one of the greatest films I think I've seen in my entire life. It may be on my top 10 list after I review that list here in the future. Folks, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Please keep it spoiler-free. We will talk about spoilers in another video. And I am inspired by this film. I'm inspired by creativity across the world. And I'm so happy that this filmmaker, Takashi Yamazaki, is getting all the flowers, because he, along with the cast and the crew, completely deserve it. Godzilla still remains king. All right, folks, you know what to do. It's YouTube. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you online.